She stormed onto my property, waving a thick stack of papers, screaming, "You can't do this, arrest him." Her voice echoed across the empty fields like a warning siren. I stayed calm, leaning against my old pickup, watching the dust rise from her expensive heels. The HOA had just shoved a pipeline right through my land without my permission, carving through years of hard work, grazing fields and sacred family spots. "This is private property," I shouted, but she just laughed, as if rules only mattered when they favored her. Her face twisted with entitlement, eyes flashing like she owned the sun itself. As she called her officers, I noticed a glimmer in the water at the far edge of the property. That river, the one that fed the pipeline, had just become my secret advantage. Nobody knew I had quietly secured the water rights years ago, a fact buried deep in county records and mostly forgotten by greedy developers like her. I smiled inwardly, feeling the shift in power before she even realized it. She stomped closer, thinking the papers in her hand could intimidate me, while I casually retrieved my phone and started filming. Every step she took, every ridiculous demand was being recorded. "This is harassment," she shrieked. But the twist? I wasn't just some rancher with a camera. My brother had been a federal water rights investigator, and every word I spoke was legally backed. By the time she realized I could cut the water and shut down her entire pipeline, it was already too late. Her face went pale, lips trembling, hands dropping the papers she'd hoped would scare me. "What? How?" she stuttered. I just shrugged, pointing to the river that now belonged to me in every sense that mattered. Viral punchline whispered with a smirk. HOA built a pipeline through my ranch, so I bought the water source and cut off their entire supply. She scrambled, pacing like a caged tiger, dialing her HOA contacts as if sheer panic could rewind reality. "You can't just do that. That water belongs to the community," she yelled, her voice cracking. I leaned against the fence, watching her fury turn into confusion when I casually mentioned, "Actually, it doesn't. I hold the rights to every drop that feeds this land. That includes your precious pipeline." Her eyes narrowed, and suddenly she tried a new tactic, intimidation through fake authority. "I've called the sheriff. They'll be here any minute," she threatened, waving her phone like a badge. I raised an eyebrow. Funny, because I've already spoken to the county sheriff about unauthorized construction, and they're on their way here. For you. As if on cue, a black SUV rolled slowly down the dirt road. My heart thumped, not in fear, but in anticipation. Hidden cameras on the pipeline had captured every illegal move the HOA made, digging without permits, ignoring property markers, and bypassing environmental rules. By the time the SUV stopped, she realized she was the one in trouble, not me. Twist after twist unfolded. She lunged forward, grabbing the pipeline control valve, trying to force water through, but I had already installed a legal cutoff upstream. Water hissed in protest as it stopped mid-flow, leaving her drenched in humiliation and fury. Neighbors who had gathered to watch gasped. No one had ever seen the HOA challenge like this. I let her flail, recording every second. "Looks like the community just lost their water," I said softly, almost whispering, letting the shock sink in. Her face turned red, then pale as realization hit. Her fake power meant nothing against legal rights and a little preparation. The ripple of satisfaction in me was deep. Justice didn't need violence. It needed strategy. By now, a small crowd had gathered at the edge of my ranch, drawn by the shouting and the sound of rushing water stopping abruptly. Some neighbors whispered nervously, others stared wide-eyed. No one had ever seen an HOA Karen unravel like this. She tried to rally support, yelling, "This man is breaking the law, someone stop him!" But the murmurs around her shifted. People weren't siding with her, they were watching, waiting, stunned. I walked calmly toward her, letting the dirt crunch beneath my boots. "You see," I said, "laws aren't what you think. They're what you prove in court. And I have proof, permits, ownership papers, and recordings of everything your HOA has done here illegally." Her confident smirk faltered as she glimpsed the neat stack of documents in my hands, each one a hammer poised to fall. Then came the shocker. I casually mentioned, I also know your HOA president signed off on the pipeline without full board approval. That makes this contract void." Her eyes widened. "What? No!" she gasped, fumbling her phone. I had anticipated her panic. She was scrambling to hide her own mistakes, but the legal trap was already sprung. As I started showing the footage from my hidden cameras, construction, crews ignoring boundaries, bulldozers tearing through land they had no right to touch. The crowd's murmurs turned into gasps. Her carefully constructed image of power collapsed with each frame. She tried to shout over the evidence, but it was useless. And just when she thought she could flee, the county investigator I'd discreetly called earlier appeared, clipboard in hand. "Ma'am, we need to discuss these violations," he said calmly. Her face went from rage to shock to desperation in mere seconds. It was beautiful, watching the entitled queen of the HOA crumble under the weight of her own corruption. Viral, thought lingered in the air. HOA thinks they own everything until the land fights back. She backed up, her expensive heels sinking into the dirt, eyes darting wildly between the crowd, the investigator, and me. This isn't fair. I demand," she started, but the investigator raised a hand. "Ma'am, your demands aren't relevant. The pipeline is illegal. You've trespassed and violated water rights. Everything here is documented." Her face twisted in disbelief. I stepped closer, my voice calm but firm. "You built through my land, ignored permits, and thought I'd just sit quietly. Now you're on record for all of it." She tried to grab her phone, maybe to call for backup, but my niece, who had been quietly filming the entire fiasco from the porch, held her hand up. "Everything you say is being recorded," she said, and I could see the panic ripple across her features. Then came another twist. I casually mentioned, "By the way, the HOA's insurance refuses to cover illegal work. Any damage caused by your pipeline is on you personally." Her jaw dropped. She staggered backward, glancing at the pipeline that now sat useless, dry, and humming in silence. The realization hit. Every dollar she thought she controlled was slipping away. One of the neighbors, finally bold enough, shouted, "You can't bully people here anymore." Others nodded, murmuring agreement. The power of the HOA queen shrank with each second. Her entitled glare shifted to pleading, and I almost felt sorry. Almost. I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the crowd feel the shift in power. Then I said softly, almost under my breath, "This land, these rights, my family's work. You can't touch it." Her eyes widened and a small bitter laugh escaped her. "You think you've won?" she sneered. I smiled faintly, walking past her toward the river that fed the pipeline. "I don't think I know." The crowd gasped again, understanding that the final twist hadn't even been revealed yet. The water was mine, and with it the control. Viral punchline lingered. "She built through my ranch, but she forgot one rule. You never mess with the water." By now the tension had reached a boiling point. The HOA Karen was pacing frantically, her hands shaking, muttering threats that no one took seriously. I walked to the riverbank, crouched down, and slowly opened the valve I had legally purchased the rights 2 years ago. Water hissed and surged, redirecting itself away from her precious pipeline. Her eyes went wide, lips trembling. "No, that's impossible," she screamed. I calmly looked up at her. "Everything you built, every drop you thought you owned, it's mine, and you have no right to it." The crowd watched in awe as the mighty HOA enforcer was reduced to a flailing, red-faced figure, her expensive clothes soaked from the river's mist. Even the county investigator raised an eyebrow in quiet approval, but she wasn't done yet. In a desperate move, she lunged toward the valve, trying to force it open, yelling about lawsuits and fake cops. That's when I revealed the last twist. Hidden in the soil near the river were sensors that recorded her tampering. Every illegal act, every reckless attempt to seize control was now documented. The footage alone would ruin her HOA reputation, and possibly her career. She froze, realizing she had no cards left to play. Every scream, every false threat, every attempt at intimidation had been captured. The water I controlled flowed freely, leaving her pipeline empty and useless. Neighbors whispered and exchanged glances, stunned at how swiftly the tables had turned. I turned to the crowd, voice steady and proud. HOA thought they could bulldoze, lie, and intimidate. But when you know your rights and your water, no one can touch you. Karen's shoulders slumped, and for the first time I saw fear instead of arrogance. Viral line for the moment. HOA tried to steal my land and my water, but I owned the source all along. Her face was a mix of rage, panic, and disbelief. She stumbled backward, clutching the empty pipeline like it was a lifeline. "You can't do this. I'll sue you. The HOA will—" I cut her off with a calm but firm voice. "The HOA has already broken every rule in the book. And now, thanks to your greed, the county has everything on record. You're the one who's going to court," she tried to argue. But the county investigator stepped forward, holding a tablet with every illegal act documented, including timestamps from the cameras I had installed months ago. "Ma'am, every violation is recorded. You can't escape accountability," he said. Karen's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, tried to shout, but no words came out. Then came the final twist. I revealed that I had secretly acquired the rights to not only the river feeding the pipeline, but also the secondary tributaries. Every drop of water the HOA relied on to function was now under my legal control. The crowd gasped as they realized her empire of entitlement had been cut off completely, legally and permanently. She sank to her knees in the mud, defeated. The neighbors who had once feared her began clapping quietly, some cheering. The power shift was undeniable. I turned to the crowd, smiling, and said, "You can't bully people, take what's not yours, or ignore the law and expect to win." Viral punchline echoed through the air. HOA built through my ranch. But they forgot one thing. I own the water, and that rules everything. The silence after her collapse was almost deafening. Karen sat in the mud, dripping, muttering threats that no one took seriously anymore. The neighbors began approaching cautiously, some bringing towels, others just shaking their heads in disbelief at how quickly the tables had turned. The once feared HOA queen had become a cautionary tale. I walked along the pipeline, inspecting the dry metal that now led nowhere. The water was flowing freely through the channels I legally controlled, and the reality hit the crowd. Everything the HOA had relied on was now useless without my permission. One neighbor whispered, "I never thought I'd see the day. She actually got what she deserved." I smiled quietly, knowing the satisfaction was deeper than any words could capture. Then I glanced back at her, still sputtering and trying to regain composure. "There's one more thing," I said softly, almost as if sharing a secret. "Every action you took here is now public record. Social media, county filings, everything. The moment you tried to cover up your mistakes, you only made them permanent." Her eyes widened, and I could see the weight of her exposure hitting her fully. Finally, I stepped back to the river, letting the gentle sound of flowing water fill the tense air. My family's ranch, our land, our legacy, it was safe. The HOA's greed had been stopped, and justice, legal and undeniable, had been served. Viral line for the ending beat. She tried to steal my land and my water, but the land fights back, and the water always remembers. By late afternoon, the crowd had dispersed, leaving only the soft murmur of the river and the lingering tension of what had just unfolded. Karen slumped against the fence, her expensive outfit ruined, her face pale and defeated. Even her usual arrogance had vanished, replaced by the raw realization that she had been completely outmaneuvered. I stood on the porch watching her, feeling the quiet satisfaction of justice done. Then came one last twist, the kind that would make the story unforgettable. I walked to my truck, pulled out a tablet, and showed the live feed of the pipeline sensors. Every inch of it, every illegal cut, every attempted tampering, all documented and ready for public exposure. Her eyes widened further, and for the first time she understood that this defeat wasn't temporary. It was permanent, legal, and humiliating. Neighbors peeked from their yards, whispering to each other, realizing how one person's careful preparation and knowledge of the law could topple what seemed like an unstoppable force. I turned to them and said quietly, almost as an afterthought, "This land, these rights, they're not just paper. They're protection, history, and justice all in one. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the ranch, I knew one thing clearly. No HOA, no entitled Karen, no fake authority could ever threaten my family's legacy again. The water flowed, the land was safe, and justice, patient, unstoppable justice, had been served. Viral closing line. HOA tried to take everything, but when you own the land and the water, they have nothing left. By evening, the ranch was quiet, the chaos finally settling into a tense calm. The pipeline sat useless and dry, a stark reminder of the HOA's failed power grab. Karen had retreated to her car, muttering threats that now sounded empty. Her aura of control completely shattered. The neighbors, once fearful, now gave nods of respect as I walked through the fields, surveying what was rightfully mine. But just as I thought the battle was over, a new twist emerged. My phone buzzed with a notification. Emails from the HOA board members themselves, panicked and begging for a meeting. Apparently, Karen's exposure had triggered internal chaos. They wanted to negotiate, to save what little reputation remained. I smiled, knowing the leverage was entirely on my side now. Every attempt to bully, every illegal inch of pipeline, every fake threat, they had all backfired spectacularly. I walked to the river one last time, the water sparkling under the fading sun, feeling a deep sense of triumph. The land, the water, my family's legacy, they were untouchable. And Karen? She had learned the hard way that entitlement and greed cannot override law, preparation, and courage. Viral punchline to seal it. They built a pipeline through my ranch, but I owned the water, the land, and the last laugh. Night had fallen, and the ranch was bathed in the soft glow of the moon reflecting off the river. The pipeline lay silent, a cold, useless reminder of the chaos earlier in the day. Karen's car was gone, but the memory of her screams, flailing arms, and desperation lingered like a shadow over the land she had tried to control. I walked slowly along the riverbank, listening to the water flow freely, knowing this was a victory carved from patience, knowledge, and quiet strategy. Then came the final, subtle twist, the one no one expected. I received a call from the county office confirming that the HOA board itself was under investigation. Karen's attempts to manipulate, intimidate, and illegally seize land had triggered a full review, and every member who had colluded faced penalties. The ripple effect of her greed had turned into a wave of accountability, sweeping through the organization she once ruled. I leaned on the fence, watching the stars reflect on the water, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. My family was safe, our land was protected, and justice had not only been served, it had been inevitable. The quiet of the night, the gentle flow of water, and the knowledge that truth and preparation always win were far more powerful than any shout, threat, or entitlement. Final viral closing line. They thought they could take my land and my water, but when justice flows, even the strongest HOA can't stop it. Dawn broke over the ranch, painting the fields in gold, and with it came a sense of complete closure. The chaos of the previous day felt almost unreal, like a storm that had passed, leaving clarity and calm in its wake. Karen was nowhere to be seen, likely nursing her bruised ego and planning futile attempts to regain control, while the neighbors now treated the ranch and me with a newfound respect. As I walked along the river, I reflected on every twist that had unfolded, the illegal pipeline, her fake authority, the attempted intimidation, and ultimately, the water rights that had turned the tide. Every move I had made, every quiet preparation over the years, had led to this moment of undeniable justice. The HOA had tried to bully and steal, but they had underestimated the power of knowledge, legality, and persistence. The final twist came quietly. A reporter had arrived earlier that morning asking to document the story. Soon the saga of the entitled HOA, the stolen pipeline, and the rancher who turned the tables would reach beyond the county, viral across the nation. What had started as a personal fight for my land had become a symbol of justice and rightful ownership, a story people would remember. Viral closing line to seal the legend. HOA tried to take my ranch and my water, but when the land fights back, the whole world watches.